Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a great Saturday. The weather's good here in Houston, Texas, and I'm just enjoying the fall weather.
It's a little too cold for me, but it's all right. It's all right. Are you nervous?
Not at all. I'm used to speaking to crowds, but this intimate setting kind of gets to my nerves, but not that nervous.
Hi. Well, I got a bunch of questions for you. Um, don't think into it. Just get with your heart into it. Um, and just go back to all the different events over an accident. So this is just you and your story. So let's start with share a little bit about your childhood and how it shaped who you are today.
My childhood growing up, I was in a two-parent household. Um, my dad was abusive to my mom. At the age of 10, my parents did divorce. And it affected me in many ways because I started to not, I would say, act out, but my work in school would lack and I would not be as active as I was with friends. So then when I finally got out of that situation and we moved, I kind of found myself, I guess you would say. And mom started me in therapy, and my mom was a hard worker. My dad, he really loved us. He still helped even though they wasn't married, which I applaud him because most men think that if they pay child support, that's just it. But my dad, he still was there during the whole process. So I would never leave him out of any part of my story because he was there to the day of his death. And so just growing up in the household and having both parents was good. But the way it shaped me more today is that I have learned that as a woman that I can survive on my own without a man. But I've also learned that having a man in the household is also good as well because it instills a lot in you to have both that male and that female model in the home.
Okay. You talked about your parents. How close are you with your mom today?
My mom and I, we talk quite frequently. There are some times when I do need to take a break from her for my peace. My dad, before he passed in 2014, we talked daily as well. I was the one who designed his whole funeral and everything. So I was proud of myself for that because nobody could step up to the plate and do it. But the relationship I have with my mom is uniquely awkward. To say that sometimes she works my nerves, but hey, that's mom, and I'm still gonna be there for her when she needs me. When I was younger, I really envisioned being a prosecutor. Uh, I love the law. I would watch law shows as a kid and just wanted to be prosecutor. I wanted to get the bad people and make sure they're put away. I also wanted to. Then I said, okay, well then I'll be a judge. I want to become a judge. Then I was like, no, not a judge. Oh, I'll be a juvenile probation officer. So it's always been that I wanted to do something in the criminal justice field. After seeing my parents going through what they went through, and knowing that many of my cousins did not graduate college, I wanted to ensure that I was going to go to college and graduate and get my degree. So now I'm in education. This is year 18. And it's funny because I never pursued anything criminal justice. I have two degrees, one in criminal justice and the other one is in adolescent psychology. So I feel as though the psychology really kicks in because I'm working with children and they are adolescents. But I met my ex-husband at a young age and got pregnant at a young age. So I could not go into the criminal justice field at that time because I became pregnant my freshman year in college.
Okay, so with becoming pregnant, you still achieved two degrees. So with a degree in criminal justice, why didn't we do anything with criminal justice?
Once I started having kids and I started subbing in the school system, and I knew that, hey, this was for me because I can be off when my kids are off. I can be able to help other kids. And with the adolescent psychology degree, I can be able to help kids that needed like psychological help or psychological information, even the parents as well.
So where, I know how, but where did your career start in education?
Where it started, I started in Galena Park Independent School District, where I graduated from. I started at Green Valley Elementary. I was an aide for back then I think it was called PACE. I'm not for sure, but it was for the kids that were emotionally disturbed. So I was an aide for those kids, and I just finished my degree while going to school full time and working full time and being a full time mom. To know that hey, this is me. I want to be a teacher and hopefully get into leadership where I'm at now.
And you, 18 years, you did living the work.
Yes,
So
I have.
being a full-time mom in a committed relationship, still in school, did you have a mentor, someone that you looked up to that helped guide you along the way?
I did not have a mentor, but I did have a seventh grade teacher who I always commend, Miss Jackson. She was my basketball coach, and she thrived and she influenced me and gave me all the tools that I needed to be successful. Like, she never gave up on me. Even when times got tough with my mom and situations would happen, she was always my go-to. So I applaud Mady Pearl Jackson in everything I talk about. And I still have a relationship today with her.
So with her aspiration and with your life at the moment, what inspired you? I know you wanted to be in leadership one day, but what was your goal at that moment?
So my goal was just to become a teacher. I wanted to teach English. Then I thought about, okay, you got the criminal justice degree. My high school, North Shore, they used to have a criminal justice class. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to high school and teach the criminal justice class in high school. But I found my niche, I guess, within middle school. I feel like that is a crucial age where a child needs to be nurtured and also disciplined to shape them into who they're becoming. So I said, I didn't want high school. I want middle school because this is where the change really happens. This is where they find themselves. And that's why I choose to stay in the middle school role.
Moving right along, I want to know, how did you meet your now ex-husband?
We were working at Cons. I was a call taker. He was a delivery driver helper. And his dad worked there. He only came there during breaks because we were in college. And I was here going to U of H downtown. And I saw him and I told his dad, give me his number. And his dad was like, no, you get it yourself. And so I became like, okay, this guy, he's hot. I'm gonna really go for him. And so one day I did look him up in the computer and I called his house. And I asked to speak to him and we started talking on the phone. And that's how we started communicating.
So what was it? Was it the height? Was it the color? Was it the respect?
It was the height, the mannerism. He showed very good mannerisms. You can tell he was brought up in a respectful home. Knowing that he was athletic, he played baseball, so it was very like attractive. Like, I've always been attracted to athletic beings, so that was something else that added on to the layer of attraction.
So before you looked him up in the system, made that phone call, did y'all ever have any like eye contact? Did y'all?
Yes, plenty of eye contact. I was his, so we had different teams that we were responsible for answering if they called for anything. So I was his point of contact. So he would have to give me his route sheet, make sure all the routes were signed by the customers and everything. So he had to interact with me on a daily basis.
Okay. So in what year did you all get married?
We got married in 2004. We dated, well, when we, let me say this, a year we were like together. We never put a title on it, but we were together for a year before we actually got married. The early years of marriage, we had our first child 4 days after we got married. We got married April the 26th, and my first child was born May 1st. Yeah, so right, 4 or 5 days afterwards. Um, I would say those years were okay to a certain extent. Once my first child was 4 months, that's when I found out that he was cheating. And that's when things kind of started getting rough, but they got kind of back on track because the excuse was, oh, we married young, and I just needed to get out my system.
At that moment, get what out of the system? What were you thinking? Get what out of the system?
I guess he was thinking of getting like um out of his system of being with other women because apparently he had been sexually active with a lot of women before. So I think that was his thing, and he was just trying to get out there and see what was out there.
So after that happened in your early years of marriage, can you describe the dynamic of the relationship following?
So following the early years of marriage and the dynamics, it was rocky. We were living in an apartment. His parents had taken everything from him because they didn't want him to marry me. They took his car, stopped paying for his schooling and stuff. So he actually had to get out. At that time he was working 2 jobs. I was still a aide, and if you know back then aides didn't get paid that much. So specifically, I was working just to keep my kid in daycare. And so later on in 2006, here comes another baby. And I had to go and like push myself. You got to finish school, girl. You got 2 kids. It's time to get that career going and do what you need to do. But at this time, he was still cheating, just wasn't respectful to me. And I'm like, we planned this baby. Baby number two was planned because we wanted the kids to be 2 years apart. So baby number two was a planned baby. It wasn't like we didn't plan it. She was actually planned. So I don't understand why the cheating continued if you were still trying to grow a family.
But at this point, how many instances of cheating were there?
So at 2006, I would say we were, that I knew of, 3 women.
There really?
3. 2 of which his family actually introduced, one of his family members introduced him to 2 of them. They would be at the family functions. One of them, she was known around the Houston area for her singing. But yeah, they were friends with the family, and one of the aunts introduced him to them. The other one he found online. What made LaKis stay was LaKis felt as though she would not be like her parents. My parents divorced at 10, like I stated earlier, and I assured myself that I was gonna have this life. And I looked at his parents. They had been married for 20 something years, and so they would go to dinners, invite me to dinner before we got married and everything. So I'm like, this is like the Hustles. They got it all together. They got the wife, the mom, the husband, his sister. They had the nice big house. They would do family gatherings where the family would come over. And that really drew my attention to like, hey, we can one day be like your parents. So that's what made LaKis stay, because she focused more on being that American dream, I guess you would say, of having the white picket fence, the husband that works, the mom, and the kids outside playing and everything. So
Do you feel that you got that?
I felt like I got it later on in the marriage, but it still wasn't genuine.
On both ends or just his?
On both ends.
So we talked about what we would now call red flags. We're now 3 instances, and were there any more flags as the years progressed?
As the years progressed, there were. social media was not what it's like now. He would be on like social media at dating apps. Then I would find emails because Yahoo Messenger was big back then. That was the way we communicated. So he was communicating with females through Yahoo Messenger. I would find different numbers in his car console and things like that. And that was his way of how he would like talk to the women, I guess. Because by 2008, he actually became a police officer. And so then that was just more free game. Oh, I got this number because I have to contact this person. Oh, I have this number because I have to do this. So that was really his way to get around things without me knowing.
So prior to becoming a police officer, he wasn't good at hiding it. But
Right. Because I've always called him every time.
so when he put on that badge, what were you fearful of? Were you fear of more women or fear of his life on the line? Were you nervous for anything?
When he put on that badge, I was actually excited because I knew more money would be coming into the household. The cheating had slowed down at this point because he had to focus on school. But during school, I found out that he was messing around with a girl at the police academy. So, with that being said, I found out that the day he graduated, she didn't complete the class, but he went into the bathroom and called her. And I was like, what took you so long in the bathroom? Because we were all out to dinner celebrating graduation. And once we got home, I went through the phone and saw that he had called her. And that's when I found out about her. And I would say that was the first time we actually like parted ways. We broke up. Like there were times where I would just be like, okay, you say you're gonna stop talking to her, okay. But this time I actually left the house, the apartment we were living in, and went stay with my mom.
From
Probably about a good 2 to 3 weeks.
was he calling? Was he showing up?
Yes, he was calling, apologetic. Um, that's not somebody I want. It just happened. I don't know what made me do it. I want my family back. Y'all need to come home. All the
Kids.
uh-huh.
Took the kids.
Yes, I took the kids too. So all the typical things that a man would say to get you back, he was genuinely saying those things. Did I think he meant them? At some point I did. But as I think back over time, I know that he knew that I was a good provider. He knew that I was going to make sure he was well taken care of and my kids were. So that was just his way of getting me back.
So you escaped to mom's house for a few weeks. How else did you cope with the initial signs of trouble in your life?
My faith in God. I would pray. I would call on people to pray with me. I even reached out to a cousin that was a pastor and asked could he do counseling with the both of us because I wanted to know what is the root cause. Like we're freshly married, 2 children in. What is the reason? Is it me or is it you? And we would go to counseling and he started refusing to go. Well, that's your family. I was like, but he's not going to talk to nobody. That's not the church we belong to. So why are you so concerned and not wanting to help or wanting to get to the root cause? So shortly after that, again, counseling stopped. And again, the cheating picked back up.
And we are now at number 4, number 5.
Probably at number 5, because it was one that was out of town that actually flew in to be with him, but he swore up and down he was not intimate with her. He just brought her here because she was trying to get a job out of school, and he had dinner with her.
So being at number 5, were there any moments that you felt trapped in the relationship?
I wouldn't say trapped. I would call it more like stuck. I'm stuck here because I know I don't make enough money to take care of my two children and myself. So it was like I'm stuck here with him because he's making all the money and he's the provider. And he was the one making sure that, hey, the bills got paid, things were getting taken care of in the home. So I wasn't trapped, but I did feel like I was just stuck. I couldn't leave. I had to be there because I didn't want to go back home to my mom with two kids.
So did you confide in anyone about what was happening behind closed doors?
My mom knew everything. She knew all the cheating that was going on. She knew the women I would tell her. Um, she didn't share it with my dad because I told her not to, but she did. She knew. She knew the ins and outs of every situation.
So going back to that word fear, what role did fear play in your decision to stay after that was life?
The role fear played, fear of being alone, fear of not being able to survive. Um, Fear played a big part. I feared nobody's gonna want a girl with two kids. Nobody's gonna want me making the salary at the amount that I was making at the time because I hadn't graduated college yet and got a degree. So fear played a big factor in me going back and forth to him because it was almost like I was depending on him to make it,
To make it to work.
to make it through life, period. Like that was my lifeline. Here, go get your nails done, go get your hair done, come and pay the car note. Because I only made enough to pay for daycare. So
So going back to the day, the life changing day, the day that we never thought would happen. The morning you woke up, did you have any gut feeling that something was wrong?
that morning, no. Um, was he acting strange? Yes. Because he kept telling me that he was going on a training in Galveston. But he kept asking me, what time are you gonna leave the house? And that was kind of strange because he never asked. And if you know, it was the height of COVID, so people wasn't really moving around. Stores were very limited, so that was kind of strange. But what really caught me off guard was the week before when he actually told me that he was gonna kill himself and he pulled out a gun. And I told my next door neighbor, like, if anything was to ever happen to me, you know he did it. And so I did confide in her. I confided in two other officers that work with him and told them, hey, he tried to say he was gonna kill himself. And I don't know if they let their lieutenant or sergeant know, but I did let them know what was going on. So that morning, it was just like a normal morning. I woke up, made his coffee, he got ready to go. We talked till he made it there, and actually, I went back to sleep.
And at this point in his career, he was at what now?
At this point, he was a sergeant.
So I want you to walk me through the moments leading up to the moment.
Okay. So we talked on the phone. He said, "Oh, I'm when are you leaving?" I was like, "Oh, I'm leaving a little bit, just sitting around the house, not doing anything." And I was like, they're giving you guys a long lunch." And his response was, "Yeah, I got lunch for 2 hours." I'm thinking, okay. I'm cleaning the house because, like I said, it was COVID. Nobody could go nowhere. But I did need to go out to get a couple of things from the store. So as I go out and go to the store, he calls again. "Well, where are you heading?" I told him I'm heading to the store, and I'm also going to go by one of my ex-parents that I used to teach her house and talk with them. And he was like, "Okay." And so I went about my business, and then I made a U-turn in a motel parking lot because I had forgot my wallet somehow at her house. It must have fell out my purse. And I went back to her house. And that's the moment when my phone just went crazy. Who you at the motel with? I know you were cheating. That's why I told you that I was gonna kill myself because you were cheating. And I was like, this is why I can't even have friends. I can't even go nowhere. I can't do anything. I was like, this is why I want a divorce. And he knows that I've never told him that. And I told him that if I ever say the word divorce, that I really mean it and I was gonna file for it. And so I said, as soon as COVID hits and it's over with, I'm filing for my divorce because I can't take it anymore. So after that, the phone was just going belligerent. He was going back and forth. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean it. Come back home. And I'm like, how do you know where I'm at? He's like, oh, I got somebody following you. Come to find out I had a tracker on my car. Then I was like, okay, call my mom. I was like, Mom, he's acting weird, very weird. I said, I'm afraid to go home. Where I lived at that moment was close to the Beltway 8 and Cullen. I literally drove around the Beltway 8 times before I decided to go home. And the only reason I went home because my children were there. My mom said, you need to get there just in case something happens to those kids. So baby number 3 was here by this time. And he had cheated on me with baby number 3 as well. That the night I had baby number 3, he actually went to his girlfriend's house saying that he was going to check on the older 2 kids. And I called him. That's when T-Mobile had locate my child on your phone. And I was able to locate his location. And I was very disappointed that I knew this woman because her son played on the basketball team with my oldest. And she was sitting next to me and rubbing my stomach, knowing the whole time she was sleeping with my husband. So going back to that day, I get to the house. He's standing outside on the phone. I drive in the garage. His best friend calls and like, you need to get home. He said he's gonna hurt himself. And you need to hurry up and get there. I said, okay, I'm almost, I'm there, which I was already there, but I didn't tell him that. And so as I walk in the house, I bring his laundry in from the cleaners. I bring the things I bought from the dollar store. And my younger 2 were downstairs. My oldest was upstairs playing the game. So I decided to tell them to come help me put the things away. And he walked in because he was out there on the phone pacing. And he walked in and my daughter said he told her, if anything is to happen, do know I love you. And so I was in the closet putting up the clothes and I came back out and he asked me to close the door to the bedroom. And so I closed the door and he was like, can we talk? And I was like, yeah, what is it? He was like, so this is how you're gonna be? This is what you're gonna do to me? And I was like, I can't take it anymore. I was like, I can't do nothing. I can't go anywhere. You always think I'm cheating. If I go to my mom's house, I have to take a child with me because you think I'm meeting a man at my mom's house. And so we were just talking, having a conversation. And he was like, I'm not stupid. I know you messing around with somebody. I had a track on your car. And he just went on and on. And so at this time, I'm thinking with my psychological part, okay, how can I bring him down? Because I feel that it was getting heated. And I was like, it's not like that. We can talk about it, And he was like, well, you said you're gonna divorce me. I was like, well, let's just talk about it. Because at this time, we had been through counseling during COVID as well. We were doing counseling online. And so we decided, like the 3rd counseling session, that he didn't want it anymore because he felt like the counseling guy was taking more of my side. And so we stopped the counseling and that moment when we were in the bedroom talking, we were just having a normal, like, well, this is not what I want. I want my family. I've been trying. And I'm like, well, you've been getting those 3 o'clock a.m. phone calls. You're supposed to be working an extra job. Well, she has to have my number because she works with me. And I was like, I'm done. And so this was so weird because I've never touched his gun or anything. And he tells me, hey, can you get my gun out the holster? It's pinching my side. And my response was, I'm not touching your gun. I don't never touch your gun. So he then proceeds to pull it out himself and he points it to me. And I'm like, no, please don't. My kids are here. I was like, whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about it, but do not shoot me. My kids are here. And at this point, I'm walking backwards and he's walking towards me with the gun pointed in my chest. So I go into panic mode. I start screaming for my child because I know she was downstairs. And as I'm screaming for her, I'm walking backwards and I trip over and fall. And as I'm on the ground, he gets on top of me. And the words that came out of his mouth was, if I can't have you, nobody can.
And that breaking news is a shooting in southeast Houston where Houston police say a Fort Bend ISD officer is accused of shooting his wife.
It happened on Prosperity Ridge Drive near Cullen Boulevard and the Beltway. Channel 2's Michael Lepardi just arrived on the scene. He joins us live now with what he's seeing. Michael?
Dominique and Chris, police have focused most of their attention to this home just behind me, and you can see right in the front driveway there is a police car for Fort Bend ISD. In the past few minutes or so, we literally just got an update from the officers out here, and they told us that what happened, they were called out here for a domestic violence incident, and that the officer is accused of shooting his wife once in the chest. We're told she was taken to the hospital, and she is expected to survive her injuries. There is we're told that the officer had been employed with the department for about 12 years. Once again, the woman who was hurt here expected to be okay. We're going to stay out here and work to get a little bit more information on what led up to this. We're told that the couple did have, I believe it was 3 children, and at least one of them was home at the time. We're also going to work to find out what the status of them is and the children as well.
And so my intuition was thinking, he's going to try to shoot me in my face. So I took my hand, and as the gun was coming towards my chest, I did this, and I had a cut here. And as I was calling my daughter, and when he fired, she walked in the room. She said that once she walked in the room, it like stunned him, and she said he had shades on his face. I did a little research afterwards. Most people, when they're trying to kill somebody, they will not look that person in the face. So I don't know if the sunshades that he had on, I know they were on his head, but she said when she walked in, he had them on his face. So I thank God I never lost conscious. He shot me, and I told him, I said, you really shot me? And he told me, yeah, you deserve it. And I said some harsh words, and I was like, you really shot me, but some other words came out as well. And I was like, you're not gonna call the police? Because at this time I was bleeding a lot. I had lost a lot of blood. He shot me 2 inches from my heart. And so he goes to proceed to take my hands and start wrapping my hands around the gun. And I'm like, no, I know what you're trying to do. Stop it. And he was like, no, give me your hands. I'm like, no, you need to call a paramedics because I'm bleeding. So we're going back and forth. My phone starts ringing because my kids, they ran outside the house to the neighbors. And I stayed conscious and I answered the neighbor. And she was like, we have your kids. We have them. Are you okay? And I was like, just get 911 here. And so at this point, he actually did dial 911. And he started making himself cry. 911, and I can remember just like it was yesterday, my wife just shot herself. And I said, he's lying. And he clicked and hung up the phone from 911. So I laid there. I remember him ripping off my shirt, ripping off my bra. and I decided to try and slide because I was shot on the left side to slide my way out the room, but he pushed me back down. Um, he told us probably prior to that, 2 weeks ago, he had taught a class about if you ever shot in your upper torso to lean to your side so you don't choke off your own blood. But he started pushing me down to make me choke off of my blood, and I did start choking. And so as he was pushing, just think of a 315-pound man at 6'3" pushing on me, and at this time I was at a lower weight. I was about 170. He broke my ribs, fractured my shoulder, and he was like, I'm just trying to stop the bleeding. And so for some reason, I never opened my eyes, and I don't know why. And I question God as to why I never opened my eyes. But when the paramedics got there and I heard them say, HPD, put your hands up, that's when my eyes opened. And I saw them taking him out, and the paramedics rushed in, and they were really, started working on me and doing what they need to do to stop the blood, because at this time I had lost a significant amount of blood. My children were across the street with the neighbors. They were very frightened. They didn't think I was gonna make it. The news portrayed it. I mean, it was breaking news. It made it all the way to San Antonio because I have an uncle who lived in San Antonio, and he called and he was like, that looks like Bookie's house. And I'm like, my mom was like, yeah, but my phone was constantly ringing, and I was answering my phone, like telling people, yeah, that's me. And so as I get in the ambulance, we get halfway, they're telling me, like, stay woke, stay with me. We take you to Bentop. And my first thing is, I don't want to go to Bentop. That's a county hospital. I have insurance. And the paramedic, he was like, ma'am, Bentop is the best trauma center for gunshot wounds. And so I was very, started getting tired, because at this time, by him pressing down on me, he had broken 4 of my ribs, and I had a lung puncture, and I had the bullet broke a bone in my spine, and my shoulder was fractured. So I do remember telling the guy, like, I can't keep doing it, I'm tired. And I coded. They literally had to shock me back to bring me back. I literally died on the way to the hospital. And when he brought me back, they shocked me back. I remember the paramedic asking me, what do you have to live for? The question was my 3 children. They need me. So his response was, with every breath in your body, when you take a breath, ask God to keep you here for your kids. And if you know where I stayed off of 288, it's not too far from Bentop. But when I say that seemed like it was the longest hospital ride there was, but I would take a breath and be like, Lord, keep me here for my kids. And he was like, that's it, keep going, keep going. And so I remember getting to the hospital. It was during COVID again. No one could come in. That was also the day Ricky Smiley's daughter got shot that same day. So she was at the same hospital as well. I remember going in, and they immediately rushed me to surgery, put a chest tube in me to help me breathe, because I wasn't breathing regularly, like it was pacing. But I kept remembering hearing my phone, even though I was under anesthesia, like I kept hearing my phone. And one of the nurses, she laughed when I got out of the procedure. She said, I have never saw somebody keep waking up saying my phone's ringing. And just to see the outpour of how many people were calling and trying to see, was I okay, or were the kids okay? It was very heartwarming to know that many people were really cared about my interests and my well-being at that time.
Do you remember when your middle child walked in, the reaction on her face?
I remember looking at her through my peripheral, And at that time, that's when the gun went off, and she just screamed and ran out. Um, she was, she did better than I thought, because my oldest son was upstairs. He came down, but the youngest had locked himself in her room. So she went and got him in fear that something was going to happen to him. My biggest fear was that he was going to unload that gun on me. But I think he initially shocked himself. I don't think he thought he had it in him to do it, but he did it. And so it's like he froze once he did it. So, but my fear was that he fit on loose this clip on me and my kids. So I was very proud that she knew to grab her siblings and get out and call for safety. She also had called 911 herself.
So with God's help, in that moment, emotionally, how did you survive to stay awake with your phone, to think of the training that had happened 2 weeks prior? In that moment, emotionally, how do you think you helped yourself?
I just think that it was God's grace over my life. He had better plans for me. We didn't talk about some years, but I will tell you, in 2015, I did leave and got my kids and I an apartment, and we stayed gone for 6 months, because at this time, this was like woman number 9, and it became embarrassing. Like, what am I to you? I bear your children, I cook your meals, I keep the house clean, and you're cheating. So I always remember in 2015, I was in my prayer closet and I prayed and asked God to, get me out of this situation. And what is it that is I need to do? And I heard the voice of God tell me to go. And I left and got an apartment, but I end up going back like most women do, because I would say I didn't really learn what domestic violence could all entail until I was in the hospital. 2011, he did hit me, and we had a physical fight. And I told my mom, he bruised me really bad, and she saw the bruises and everything. But that was the first time he actually beat me. But then I was talking to the social worker in the hospital, and that's when she brought a pamphlet, and she told me, she was like, you've been married how long? I said, we've been married for 17 years. She said, this has been going on, him beating on you? And I was like, that's the point. He's only beat on me once, and that was in 2011 when I stepped outside the marriage. I said, but she said, but look at all the things on this paper. I want you to go through and check off all what he's done. Isolate you from family, check. Didn't trust you, check. Not interacting with your family, check. And so all those things that was there was narcissist behavior, and that was like verbally abusing you, calling me fat. She was like, all that signs of domestic violence. You just thinking about the physical part, but there's also a mental part to domestic violence that a lot of women are not aware of.
So going into that survival stage, it was at the height of COVID. What was that recovery process like without having anyone to come?
So during those stages, I did have a cousin who was an officer. He's still an officer. He's like a brother to me. He worked for Precinct 7, and they would let him come. He made sure that I got the best care. He had them put me by a nurse's station. He had his picture posted. He was like, if this guy come in with a police uniform, do not let him see her. I had 24-hour security. His job paid for security to be at my door. So thank God iPhones were there, because that's how I got to see my kids, talking through the iPhone. Also with my mom, my kids were with my mom, so that was good for them that they were together. But I was told I would be there for like 2 to 3 months, which really struck me. It was like, I cannot be away from my children for 2 to 3 months. Like, this is a critical time that they really need me. So I made sure everything the doctor said to do, I was doing it, because I wanted out of there. My brother, who was an officer at the time too for Spring ISD, they would let him come, and he would come sometime and see me. But I would say the first 8 days there, I was just in tune with God. It was just me and God those first 8 days. I was taking the medication that was given, but it was making me sleepy. After day 8, I started refusing the medication because all I was doing was sleeping. And I thank the nurse that I had at night. She was an Indian lady, but she was a Christian. And me and her would pray every night, and she would ask, is there anything you want me to bring you? You want something different to eat? And I was like, I want some chocolate candy. And she'll bring me the chocolate the next night. But when I say that the recovery was a true miracle, my lung collapsed and I had a chest tube. I had got prepped twice to have surgery to repair my lungs. The bullet was lodged in the spine of my back. They could not remove it. But God saved me from even the surgeries. I was supposed to have the lung sutured, and it didn't happen that way. They came in 5 a.m. I couldn't eat the day before, did a chest x-ray, and the doctor said, oh, your lung is starting to repair itself. So I'm gonna give you a few days before we do the surgery and see what's going on. And I was like, okay. So then they came back and she said, oh, it's been closed up some more, and your ribs are starting to kind of mend back together, because if you break your ribs, they have to get back together on their own. And so after that, it was so mind-blowing, because the first night that I actually slept very well, my chest tube came out and they was yelling, cold blue, cold blue. And I'm like, oh my God, somebody done died. Because if you've ever been to Bentov, at first I was in ICU in an isolated room, but then once I got out minor ICU, it was just like all of us laying across some beds. And I'm like, who they calling the cold blue for? And so all the nurses and people with the shock pads, they come to my bed, and I turn around and I'm like, what do y'all want? And they was like, you're breathing on your own? Your chest tube is out. And I said, this is the best sleep I've had since I've been here, and y'all disturbing my sleep. And she said, so you didn't feel anything? And I was like, no. They was like, well, when the chest tube comes out, we usually numb the area because it's a tube that they have to literally pull out. I said, well, it must have came out in my sleep because I was sleeping good. And so they did another chest x-ray, and she said, well, we're gonna not put it back in. You're breathing fine. We'll just keep you on the oxygen. She said, but your lung is like at about 80% healed. And I was like, okay. And so she said, in a couple of more days, we're gonna start physical therapy, like getting your arm moving, because I was not supposed to be able to lift this left hand. And now I'll make this my dominant hand, because they told me by my shoulder being fractured and the bullet in my spine that I wasn't gonna be able to lift that hand. So I would do the physical therapy, get up, walking down the halls, working this arm and things like that. And so I never forget day 14, and she said, we're gonna move you to your own room. I said, okay. And at this time they had a heart monitor on me, because some of the bullet fragments were in my heart and some were in my lungs. To this day today, I still have 2 broken ribs. A lot of people like, how are you functioning with 2 broken ribs? Do I still be in pain? Yes. Do I want to have the surgery to get them fixed? No. I've actually been asked to get a surgery where they were going to stop my heart, to get the fragments out of my heart, and to get the fragments that's stopping my ribs from growing back together. And I told them no. I believe God's going to heal me when He's ready. So day 14, they moved me to my own room. I was like, okay, I got a TV. I got a room now. I'm not in just this hallway. And the physical therapist came in and she said that I was doing well, but they wanted to see what was going on with my heart, because I was sitting down at rest, but my heart was beating as though I was jogging or running. So then that became an issue. So I had to see a cardiologist. And I was like, I gotta go home. Like, I can't. My kids need me. So I went to the cardiologist and we went through different like breathing exercises, because at this point he was saying that the fragments was, when my heart was contracting, it was trying to push the fragments out. So that's why my heart was beating as fast as it was. But the nurses would get alarmed and be like, just lay down. I'm like, I'm just sitting up, I'm not doing anything. And so day 14, and so they put me on a heart monitor. I did the breathing steps. I used a little breathing thing to blow the little ball to help build my lungs back up. Day 17, she came to me, the doctor who had been there. She said, I said you're going to be here 2 to 3 months. I said, yeah. She said, you going home today? And I said, what? She said, you going home today, but you're gonna have to take that heart monitor with you. And I said, okay. And I started packing my stuff, and I was moving, like my shoulder was in a sling, but I was getting my things. I called my mom. I said, be outside, I'm going home. And I was like, we're gonna surprise the kids because they were at school. And so when we got ready to go, they were like, well, here's your discharge paperwork. We don't have a wheelchair to wheel you down, so we're gonna wait. I said, no, I can walk myself. I'm not waiting. So my mom came and I got in the car and I actually got in the bed. They showed me how to pack the wound and everything. And my aunt, she would come faithfully and pack it. But when my kids saw me laying in my mom's bed, they came in the house and they literally screamed, because they hadn't saw me in that long. Like, I've never been away from them. So they were happy. They jumped in the bed with me, and I was taking pictures because I was still wearing the oxygen as well. And so it was just God's grace that He knew that my kids needed me at that moment. I had no contact with their father at this time. His best friend was calling me, asking me updates on how I'm doing and stuff. But then I stopped accepting phone calls from him at that time too, because I felt like he was either on the phone with him or he was going back telling him things at this point. So.
Did you face any judgment or misunderstandings from others?
I did face, I wouldn't say judgment, but his family, they reached out to me, but I don't think it was genuine, because I've always felt like they liked me, but they didn't like me. When I did get home and my road to recovery started, when I went back to the house to get my clothing, that's when reality really hit, because the blood was still on the carpet. Previously, my daughter had been there, but she only went to get volleyball clothing because she was trying out for the club volleyball team. And I go into the bedroom, I see the blood. My mom and aunts tried to put a sheet over it, but I go to grab my clothing and they were all cut up. So now my emotions go from being hurt to anger. Like, you've already hurt me. Now you didn't cut up every piece of clothing that I had. I mean, literally cut them. Looked like he had a knife and just went through everything. So I had an uncle that lived in San Antonio. He started a GoFundMe because I was literally left with nothing. My relatives here, they did start buying me clothing, and he had took the refrigerator out of the house, the stove. And I'm thinking, if my kids and I were to come back to live here, which they didn't want to, but you've taken every appliance out of the house, how would we live? So at that moment, I felt that was very selfish, because not only now are you taking things out on me, you're taking things out on your children. Because if we had nowhere else to go and we wanted to go back to live in that house, we wouldn't have a stove, we wouldn't have a refrigerator, we wouldn't have a washer and a dryer, because he took everything. The hardest part of rebuilding, I would say, is learning to be alone. Being with somebody for 17 years, and even though we had rocky situations, there were some good times, I'm not gonna lie. We did family vacations, but having someone to talk to about your day, that was my rebuilding stage. Like, who's gonna be here when I go home? Or now LaKis has to look out for LaKis and her 3 kids. How is she gonna do this? First off, we were in a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment with my mom with 5 people. That wasn't gonna work. So my thing was, now I have to find somewhere for my kids and I to go, because we can't stay here. It's too small, it's too compact. And so that was my first thing. We gotta move. We have to establish a life for ourselves. We can't depend on my mom. And so to me, that was the hardest part. Really just knowing that, hey, you're in this by yourself. You have family, but family will say, oh, if you need anything, just let me know. But that really don't mean that. That's just a cliche that a lot of family members say, because if you call on them, you will never get it. But I did have some that were active and like helping me with the children with things that they needed, because I couldn't drive at the moment, like taking them where they needed to go for practices and things. But trying to find us like a place comfortable where we could call home, that was the biggest thing for me.
How did you know when to let go?
After I heard that the woman who he was cheating on me back in 2017, that's who house he ran to after he shot me, that's when I knew it wasn't gonna be no more of us. He told the story of that I tried to take his gun and I tried to shoot him, and he was trying to deflect the gun, and that's how I shot myself in the chest. In my mind, I'm thinking, who would believe this person at 320 pounds, 6'2", and here I'm this little woman, and you are a trained sergeant, so you should be able to handle situations as this. But I knew it was time to let go. I knew it was no going back. And I'm going to tell you how I know for a fact, because day 14, and I kept a journal in the hospital. I prayed and prayed, and I asked God so many times, why? Why would you allow me to go through this? Why did this happen to me? I'm a good wife, good mother. I teach. I love my kids. I treat the kids who I teach like my own. I do for them. And God spoke to me that night, and he said, I had to do something drastic to get you out of that situation. And so I began to think about all the things that I had been through. Like, they started just going through my mind, all the different women, all the times he had talked about my appearance, how fat I was, all the times he had commented on, oh, I wish you dressed like her, commented on, oh, why you wear weave in your hair. But every woman you messed around with me, they wore weave. So it was, God just brought all that back to my remembrance. And for me to hear the voice of God say I had to do something drastic, I immediately became obedient to the hearing of his voice, because that wasn't his first time of me hearing his voice. And so me leaving and not going back, I knew that that was my turning point. My first thing was, I'm going to file for divorce as soon as I get out of the hospital. And my mom, when she picked me up, we went to the police station, and I was very upset with HPD. And I will say that no one ever came to the hospital to get a statement from me. No one ever contacted me to see was I okay. It was almost as though they were looking out for their own. And so when I get to the police station, and the detectives was like, "Oh, we never came because we were told you had COVID. Your ex told us you had COVID." And I said, "Strange. Why didn't y'all call the hospital? Because before they move you to every floor, like when I went to every different floor, and I moved quite a bit because I was in ICU, minor ICU, went back to ICU, went to the cardiologist floor. They COVID tested me every time to make sure I didn't have COVID before going to those different floors in the hospital." So I was very upset with the process of how HPD handled the case. I think they took it very lightly, because he was one of their one, like they say, they backed the blue. And I really saw criminal justice in a different light after that, because it's like, here I am with a criminal justice degree, and here y'all are not even trying to protect and serve like you say you are. It's no way that a woman who's been shot should have to come down to give her statement. Like, somebody should have came to me and got a statement from me. And this was like day 18, and you still haven't had a statement from me. And so that was very disturbing to me. I thought about reaching out to different activists because I was very upset that the way they handled the case. I did have a cousin who tried to get Erica Simon to come and talk with me, but her people and I kept missing, so we never got a chance to talk. But over time, I was told that because of COVID, it was going to take a long time because they were backed up in the system. So
Where is he now?
he's married to the mistress who he haven't cheated on me with since 2017. He's no longer in law enforcement. He's actually in education. So yeah, he's teaching somebody's children. You asked a question, I didn't really answer it. How did I let go? And many women, when I go and talk at my conferences and ask me, "How did you get over it?" And I told them I had to forgive him. Forgiveness is key. If you want to continue with your healing, you have to forgive. And I totally cried and prayed one night, asking God to give me the spirit to forgive him, because I wanted to be free. And after that, I started back seeing the therapist that I had been seeing when I first found out he was cheating on me. And we made a quote that I would say, a daily affirmation: "I'm not there anymore." And I would have to constantly remind myself, I'm not there anymore. So what are you afraid of? What are you fearful? Because I didn't even want to go outside because I was afraid that he's still walking the streets, even though we had a no contact order. That, hey, he can still pull up on me at any time and do something to me. He can finish me off. But I constantly reminded myself, I'm not there anymore.
So how do you handle the emotional weight of reliving your story repeatedly as you go on tour?
So as I go on tour, I sometimes do get emotionally because God has now given me the discernment to see different women and to see what they're going through. Um, I don't even have to know them, but once I tell my story, there I can see a posture or something, and God immediately tell me after I finish to go exchange numbers with that person and to talk with that person. I've started touring with the book, knowing when to let go. I've even started mentoring young ladies who have had babies and they're with these guys and they feel as though they can't let go because this is their baby daddy. And I'm like, hey, if I can make it out, that should be a sign that you can get out. And you only have one baby. I had three that I had to get out there with. So that is one thing. I thank God for the discernment to be able to pick out those individuals and to see those individuals and to see that they need the nurturing, they need the confidence, they need the build up to know that, hey, and I have different shirts that I wear. I am enough, like know your worth and add tags to it. Like I've got into those things with those shirts because people actually read the shirts and they'll be like, oh, where did you get that from? I'm like, somebody made it for me. And one girl, she actually said, well, I need that shirt because I don't know my worth. And I would tell her, you're worth more than you think. But I want to go back to when I started therapy after being shot. She asked me, like, what is your confidence? How do you feel from 0 to 10? And I said, about a 2, maybe 3. And I just broke down crying because I feel like not only did my world just crash, but I let my 3 children down. And as they were seeing the therapist, their therapist told me that I was actually doing more hurt to my children than more help. And I questioned the therapist and asked, what do you mean? And he stated that by you staying in that unhealthy relationship, it was hurting them more than helping them because they didn't see what real love was. They didn't see what true love was. They just saw mom serving dad and dad occasionally going places with mom and dad taking mom out every now and then for an anniversary. Are we going on to a game or things like that? So that was a big part of the rebuilding stage. Um, and the shame was there a lot because we all worked in the same school district. So that was very shameful knowing that eventually I would have to go back to the place where I worked, where everybody knew him, her, and I. And they knew what was going on, but nobody never had the guts to tell me what was going on.
So, how do you protect your sense of normalcy after such a traumatic event?
You just have to trust in God. I will say that protection, and I pray for protection daily. Like I said earlier, for the first year, it's been 4 years now since I've been shot, but the first year I was constantly looking over my shoulder, afraid to go here, afraid to go there. Um, didn't want to go outside the house. Everything was inside. My kids didn't want to go nowhere but to school and back. So just praying and asking God for that peace and asking Him for that protection played a big part in order for me to be able to go because I didn't even go for a whole year. I didn't go to a restaurant. Like I was very fearful that I would run into him. And it's been 4 years and I still have not saw him since the incident. So I am not fearful, but I'm kind of inquisitive as to how am I going to respond when I do see him face to face. And that's something my therapist and I have been working on. Like, are you going to speak or are you going to keep going? Are you gonna cry or are you gonna panic? And so I thank God for her because she gives a lot of scenarios. And I also just started seeing a mental health coach, and she's given me a lot of tools as well to work with that has been really good.
Okay, so moving forward, what is it like touring? Seeing these women that need motivation and you are the vessel that God has given them to speak to them. Is it straining on you? Are you able to sleep the night before? Do you take any weight after speaking to these women? What is that like?
When I tour, I usually fast the day before because I want God to fill me up with what He wants me to say and not based on my feelings. I will say that I do take on some of the weight because I've been there. I know how they feel. I know what they're going through. And the last church I spoke at, domestic violence, we actually had a woman come up front and she just said, I want you to hold my hands and pray with me. And I went, it was during Domestic Violence Month, and I spoke at one of my ex-coworkers' church that Sunday morning. And she just started telling her story. Nobody in the church knew what she was going through. And I gave her my number, and I gave her a free copy of the book, and I just told her, I'm going to be your accountability partner. I'm going to make sure. She was like, I don't think nobody wants me. I got this baby. And I was like, you sound like the younger me. I say, and look at me. I said, after I left that situation that God didn't ordain, I've been blessed beyond measures. I said, I never thought I'd be assistant principal. Like, I was literally called and said, hey, I got a position. You want to apply? It's yours. It was handed to me. So, like I told her, never underestimate the power of what God can do in such a short time because He can change things, but you got to believe in Him.
What advice would you give to someone who feels stuck in an abusive relationship?
The advice I would give someone is to seek help. If you don't have a prayer life, that's where you need to first start. If you don't have a connection with God, because the times that we're living in are crazy. The system is corrupted. I would say that. And just get you an accountability partner. Get you somebody that's going to hold you accountable to say, hey, you don't need to go back there. Or, hey, you need to leave and leave for real, not just for a few days or a few nights. I would also give them the advice to seek out, there are many in different cities, domestic violence shelters. There are hotlines you can call and speak with people. So I would just give them that advice. And like I tell you, I give my number out here. Call me. I don't care if it's 2 or 3 in the morning. If you need somebody to talk to, I will wake up and talk to you. And I've had some of those women do that. Like, they're at a breaking point to where they don't know what to do. And I've called and talked and we've prayed and they have left those situations.
So, how can friends and family support someone experiencing domestic violence?
Friends and family can support by just sometimes being a listening ear. I know everybody has their opinion and I went through it, so I know firsthand. I was told, oh, you stupid, you still stand with that man. I was told firsthand, oh, stay with him, just keep praying for him, it's gonna get better. So I was told on different levels of things, but I would say as friends and family, they need to see the greater good of what's going to come out of the relationship. Like, is it good for somebody to stay in a relationship where they don't feel belittle or as nothing. No, it's not. So I would encourage them to know the signs, because my signs were there. And after I was bought aware of what the signs were, and so when I do go around and I do my tours, I give them the signs. It's a sheet that I had got in the hospital, and it shows all the signs that will end up leading up to them actually getting physical and to try to kill you.
So where do you see yourself in Levitate Survival in the next 5 to 10 years?
Levitate Survival, I thank God for it, because that's where I birthed my first baby, knowing when to let go. Fourth baby, knowing when to let go. Levitate Survival, I came up with the name with the help of my principal at the time. He was like, you gotta do something big, because you're just not surviving, you're levitating. And I was like, let me look at the definition of levitate, and it means to like go above, or you're above or beyond. And I was like, you're right, because everything the doctor said that I wouldn't be able to do, I'm doing it. So I am levitating survival. And so I do see myself, well, many know I've already signed a second book deal. Knowing Life After Letting Go will be the name of this book. They actually called yesterday and like, are you ready to start? And I'm like, no, not yet, because I have been working on the Levitate Survival Foundation, which is already my 501c3, which I'm so happy for that, thank God. So when I do these tours, everything's not coming out of my pocket like it was before. But like I said, God always made a way for every tour. Like, I may not have made money, but I touched somebody's soul, which is my ultimate goal. I'm not out here trying to get rich. I'm trying to help somebody and trying to help save somebody's life. But in the next 5 years, I do see myself nationally. Like, I want to be on a national platform where I am talking to people nationwide. The book sells through Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and I get monthly reports. And it shocked me at one period, 1 month, the book sold so much in Pakistan. And I was like, I didn't even know they read English over in Pakistan, but they do. And so that showed me that, hey, that may be a place I may need to visit when all these wars stop. But yeah, those women, whoever would purchase the books in Pakistan, or whoever needed to know when to let go, because I know their culture is totally different than ours. But they were buying the book that month. The books were off the chart. Like, it was a lot. And so I do plan on, with the foundation, speaking more, having more young women, and not just women, because I have some men who've come to me who have been a part of a domestic violence relationship, and they've asked, like, how do I get out? I'm a man, I don't want to hit her, but how do I, leave? And I've told them and referred them to my pastor, like, you just need to get your thing. He's like, but then it feels like I'm abandoning my kids. I'm like, no, you can still take care of your kids and not be in the same household. And so my dream is to get this foundation going, helping women, helping those children as well, because I don't want what they call generational curse to continue. I want it to end with me, and so I don't want my children to go through the things that I went through as an adult or as an adolescent, as the age they're at now.
Two more questions. How do you define success today compared to before the shooting?
I define success today because I made it on my own by the grace of God. I was told by my therapist, and I told you I've been seeing her since I found out he was cheating in 2017. She told me that I had a codependency problem. And I was like, okay, codependency. Break it down. She was like, you are stuck and you feel like you have to depend on somebody to make it. And when she told me, I was like, you're right. Because I feel as though I had to have him to make it in life. And so I look at myself now. Well, I look at myself in 2020 after I got out of the hospital. 3 months later, the kids and I moved out of my mom's house, and I was successful. I was in my own place, paying my own bills. We were living a life. We were happy. We didn't have to worry about somebody coming home with an attitude, or we don't know what type of mood they're going to be in today. So that defines success right there, that I was successful enough to get out and to start my life like God wanted me to be. And I think that's when I prayed the prayer to ask God to show me my purpose. What is my purpose? You kept me here, now what am I to do? And I said to myself, whatever it is that he tells me, that I'm gonna do it. So the first thing was put it in black and white. So I wrote the book, because of course people are gonna say things, or this didn't happen, but I know the truth. God knows the truth. He knows the truth. We were the only 3 in that room, and my daughter knows the truth. So it's in black and white, and I live on my truth. And like I tell people, them, like when I'm at the different conferences, I tell them a lot of sayings, and I do some activities at the end with them just to show them that you can survive and you can be successful. You know, look at me. I came from a man who provided everything. My check was my check. Like, although he cheated and did all those things, he kept the household down, and my check was my check. But now I have to live the life of, hey, LaKis has to take care of home first and then make sure things are taken care of. And I'm grateful that God has opened up different avenues the way for me to make money. Like, I used to want to do taxes when I was married to him. He would, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do this. So everything that he told me that I couldn't do, is like now that I'm doing it and I'm successful in doing it. I have a tax business LLC. Who would think that I'll be doing taxes? And I have clientele that come to me every year. It's not, oh, I'm just doing 1 or 2. No, I have about 50 clients. This year, my goal is to get 100. I don't want to get too overwhelmed because I still have a day job. But my goal is to get at least 100 clients this year. Who would have thought I would start a 501c, 313c, however they say it. But who would have thought? Like, I'm in my mind, it's just mind blowing. Like, I'm really out here doing it. I'm living life, like, and I'm doing it with a purpose. It's not just because I want to be on the scene or I just want to show him up. No, I'm doing this so I can help somebody else get out. And if you've ever saw my book trailer, the end of it says, know when to let go before it's too late. And I always end my conferences with that saying, because my too late was almost too late. So that is one thing that I think is very successful. And just meeting people that are going through similar things that I've been through, it's like, you're not alone. I've been there. So don't ever think you're alone.
My final question. What message do you want to leave for every woman who hears this story?
Okay. My message is self-love. Love yourself, because that's something I didn't do. I lost myself. I lost LaKis. LaKis revolved around him. LaKis had no friends. LaKis stayed away from family. LaKis was isolated. So the first thing, love yourself. Learn to love yourself in whatever situation you're in, because if you don't love yourself, you'll lose yourself. And I was lost. And I kid a lot with my cousins and we play a lot. And I tell them I was literally in lockup for 17 years. Like, I was confined. I couldn't be me. I couldn't do the things that I like to do because it was always what he wanted. So I would tell them to love yourself. Things I say in my conference: broken crayons still color. I've been broken, but I can still color a beautiful picture. You see, I've been successful. I love the saying, learn to dance in the rain, because there's always a rainbow on the other side. So those storms are going to come, but learn to dance and thank God for those storms, because on the other side, there's a rainbow. I also like to say, your biggest setback will bring your best comeback. So him thinking he set me back, it has brought me a bigger comeback. I really, really like the scripture, and I believe the scripture that God will make your enemies your footstools. And who would have known that my ex-husband would be my enemy, but him being my enemy has built me up to be the person that God has set me up to be. And I always like to tell people to let go before it's too late, because my too late was almost there. So I thank you for this interview. I hope something that I said touches somebody, and somebody needs to know when to let go. I'm pretty sure we will tell you on the feed like how to reach out to me, or I will show when the next cities I'm coming to tour with the book. But like I said, the book is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it's on Kindle as well. But know when to let go before it's too late, because my too late was almost there. And I thank you for the interview.
Antho-Media connection.
Before we go off, I just want to say to mostly the parents, like, look for the signs in your children, because I've been getting a lot of young ladies who are in relationships and they're like 17 or 18, and they're already like committing themselves to what this boy wants. So he wants me to do this, and he wants. So I would encourage parents, and I know you might say, oh, well, I don't want to pry into her relationships, but I think if you start early and also intervene, not taking over, but intervene and letting your child know, like, this is an unhealthy relationship. There's nothing healthy about this, because you don't want the pattern to continue. You don't want the generational curses to continue to go on. Like, I school my daughter on everything, and I talk to her one-on-one. We have conversations about men, things men do, things they may not do, things that you need to watch out for, because I don't want her to end up in a situation where she feel like she's stuck and she can't get out. So parents, men or women, I encourage you to intervene with your kids. Get in their business. Working at a school, you have to get in their business, because they are out of age, and with this technology and all the things that are going on, seeing a lot of depression and a lot of things going on in the schools, because, oh, this boy doesn't like me, or he calls me fat, or this. So I just want to put that out there for parents to just look for the signs, and even adults that are in relationships, look for the signs, and go out there and purchase the book, because the second one will be coming out real soon. It is only $19.99, but I do have copies on hand that I do sign and autograph for $25. So you can order it or you can get it directly from me. But I am about to start writing probably over the Christmas break, Life After Letting Go, because life has been lifing. And when I say this dating world is really iffy out here, being married since I was 20, and now I'm having to try to date. It is like, oh my God, what is going on? So get your copy. Be looking out for me. I may be in a city near you. So come check me out. Check out www.levitatesurvival.com. That's where all my upcoming events will be. And I thank you for the interview, and I pray that you know when to let go before it's too late.